so don't you lie to me. 'Cause I will be there anytime you need. Girl, you could cry to me, and I can see us fucking on repeat, 'cause it feels right to me.
I'm Reese Forward from Fast Forward Film, and today we're going to be talking about slow motion, and more specifically, how to make your 120 frames a second look a bit more like 240 frames a second, or maybe a bit slower. With that being said, we ride. Right, so slow motion. Slow motion is used in films and music videos to draw the audience in and give that quote cinematic feel. You know, you've heard it, the cinematic feel. Okay, so if we're starting from scratch, the way you achieve slow motion is by shooting at a high frame rate. So 60 frames a second, 120 frames a second, 240 frames a second. Basically, the more frames you have, the more you can stretch those frames out. That's why if you're shooting in 24 frames a second, for instance, and you try and slow it down, you haven't got as many frames to work with, so your image will look choppy. Right, so you've bought your camera, and most cameras can shoot at about 120 frames a second nowadays, or if failing that, 60 frames a second. Most cameras can do that. Hell, even the iPhone, the new iPhone 12, I think it's 12, I lose track. The new iPhone, it can shoot, I think 240 frames a second, maybe even more than that. Correct me if I'm wrong, leave a comment in the comment box below if I'm wrong, probably am wrong. Anyway, but say you don't want to shoot on an iPhone because you want that extra quality. And let's say for shits and giggles that you can only shoot at 120 frames a second, but you don't want to use an iPhone because you want that extra quality that you'd get from a camera, like a proper camera, like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera or a cinema camera. But let's say you want to shoot a little bit slower than 120 frames a second. Well, you've reached your limitations of your camera then. You can't shoot more than 120 frames a second. But you really want to. Like you really want to. Well, have I got a tip for you? So a few weeks ago we were shooting a video for a client, and we came up with an idea that we wanted the client to be blown through the air by an exploding door. Yeah, I know. And the first thing that came into my head was the scene in Iron Man 3 where his house blows up, and almost definitely they used CG and green screens and all that lovely stuff. But obviously we didn't have a budget for all of that stuff. All we had was a chair, a camera that barely shoots 120 frames a second, and some particle overlays, VFX overlays that we found on the internet. So let's delve into how we made that happen. So we started off by getting a shot of our talent flying through the air. The door's just blown open, he's flying through the air. And we used a crash mat. We used two mattresses actually for him to land on. And what we did is we got that shot of him flying backwards, and we also got a clean plate. And then what we did is we masked out the mattress, and we replaced the hole that was left from the mask with the clean plate. Essentially a clean plate is literally just the image without anything else in it. So we got two of those. We added a few light leaks and some slow moving particles, and that was pretty much that shot done. Then on to the super slow motion shot where we really wanted to get the reaction on the talent's face as he's getting flung back. We wanted to really sort of freeze that moment in time to kind of build that climax, like something's happening, like just being drawn in to what's happening at that moment in time. So how we did that is we were shooting in 120 frames a second, and we had Jake on like a chair, I guess it's a chair. It was basically something without a back to it, like a stool would work as well. So you want to get your talent to sit on the stool, and you want them to mimic flying backwards, but to move really slowly so that you can really drag it out. And that creates an illusion of a higher frame rate. And what we did is we moved the camera in the direction that Jake was meant to be flying. So that also simulates or creates the illusion that he's flying back in that direction. And that with some well-placed jump cuts and some VFX particles, we were able to simulate like a really slowed down shot that otherwise we wouldn't have been able to achieve. Like just dragging out that scene made it so much more impactful. And obviously 120 frames a second just wouldn't have done it. It just wouldn't have created the same feel, like the attention to what's actually going on in the scene. So I guess the take home from this video is that slow motion can be a really helpful tool to draw your viewer in, to create that sort of climax and that tension. And maybe it's something to consider when you're shooting your videos. With that being said, I hope this video has been informative. Please, as I said before, please subscribe, leave a comment below, maybe hit that like button if you liked the video. It means a lot. It's going to help us carry on making videos for this channel because we love doing it. But anyway, yeah, with that being said, leave us a comment below if there's any sort of slow motion tips that you've discovered whilst out filming. With that being said, I'm Reese Forward. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Adios!
So don't you lie to me, 'cause I will be there anytime you need. Girl, you could cry to me, and I can see us fucking on repeat.